Hi everyone, sorry for the little delay. Our internet has been shit for the last couple of days and Newscope are doing wonders in reconnecting us, but at the moment I've connected my hotspot on my phone to allow us to get access through Optus rather than my Wi-Fi. Blah, blah. What do I know? But anyway, the talk tonight is about narcissism. And it is a profound subject that affects all of us, really, and particularly anyone who's working in the healing profession, in the business of awakening, in the business of healing and letting go. It's always us who have been on the receiving end of narcissistic madness that are the ones to say, enough, I'm breaking free. Okay? We are the ones who step away and bring the house of cards down. And this is actually a pretty good flow on from what we were talking about last night, okay? About love, whether it's the infantile, narcissistic, needy love that wants to control everything and feed me, fill me, as opposed to the mature love. And those of us that have escaped these things, we are moving towards that mature, authentic love, the agape of spirit, as opposed to that wretched business that we've dealt with. But most of the people I know that are in the healing profession, that are in the therapeutic modalities of whatever kind they are dealing with, those are the ones that have been on the receiving end of it. Those are the ones who've chosen to say, enough, I'm drawing my boundaries, I can't do this anymore. And may I say, fucking excellent work, ladies and gentlemen. You are healing, you are embracing, okay? This narcissistic epidemic, and it is an epidemic, for all the reasons that we've talked about last night in terms of a world gone mad and the toxic patriarchy and the toxic capitalism. You know, we've built a world where everybody is special, everybody wins a prize, everyone gets a little trinket in past the parcel, everyone gets a ribbon for running the race. In a highly competitive, animalistic existence that we live in, we're pretending that that doesn't happen. We are not preparing our children to rise, to fall down, rise up, okay? There's no delayed gratification, give it to me now. There's no ability to focus on a larger reality. I want it all and I want it now. Who is Narcissus, or who was Narcissus? First point. Narcissus was a hunter from Greek mythology who was renowned for his beauty and his power and his strength, and who loved all things beautiful in ancient Greece. Everybody loved Narcissus. People were actually known to commit suicide in declaring their devotion to him, which is kind of creepy when you think about how it impacts on us now. You know, it's slightly backward, but we're very much entrenched in it, and there's no accounting for what people do anyway. In the Greek mythology of it, one day, as Narcissus is out there hunting and being glorious and doing his thing, a beautiful maiden known as Echo saw him and fell in love with him. I'm giving you a very abbreviated version of it, by the way. Fell in love with him, but because Narcissus, who was so wonderful and so glorious, was disdainful of everybody who loved him, even those who committed suicide to declare their devotion to him, okay? Let's not go into the deeper levels. When he finally encountered Echo, long story short, she was saying, Narcissus, and he was saying, who's there? And she would say, who's there? But anyway, when he finally encountered her, he sent her away, and heartbroken, she became an echo of herself. Now, Nemesis, a face of Aphrodite at the end of the day, and also the goddess of revenge, decided to teach him a lesson. So one day, after a very long hot hunt, as hunters do in the hot sun and blah, 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 she lured him to a special pool to drink. And when he leant in to drink, he saw his reflection in the water, but Narcissists arranged it to see the perfected view of him, the youthful view of him, the ever-precious view of him, okay? And so he fell in love with this image, not realizing it was himself at the time. He could not reach this youth in the pool, and so eventually, realizing finally that his love would not be reciprocated, he was consumed with the passionate fire of unrequited love. And anybody who's experienced unrequited love knows it's a fucker. And turned into a flower. Other versions of this have him killing himself, but as in all Greek tragedies, it ended badly. So a narcissist, following on from that, is basically someone in love with themselves that requires the world to love them as equally powerfully as they love themselves, right? Now, not being loved in the way that you want to be loved will bring rage and outrage as they attempt to convince the other of just how special they truly are. It is very much on that spectrum that we talked about last night of the infantile, insecure love, the terrified little boy or girl inside end of the spectrum. It can be overt, rageful, bullying, murderous, what have you, or it can be covert or can fluctuate between the two. How does it begin? How does it begin? And this matters because we've all grown up with some extension of this. Toxic parents, and they are toxic, who probably had it done to them ad nauseum back through the lineage, wounds being carried on in the way that we've spoken about before, inflict this pain on children that was done to them. The message to the child growing up with this parent is this: fear me and yet love me. Until in the end, and we all know this, the child who becomes hypersensitive to how is the key being turned in the lock? How is the footstep on the floor? How are the keys being tossed down? And we become hypervigilant to, oh my God, he's in that kind of mood. What do I have to do to take care of it? What do I have to do to appease it? Blah, blah, blah. Until in the end, the child is blaming themselves for not being good enough, for the parents drinking, the parents' temper tantrum, or whatever else is going on. The next message is to the child is deal with that, by the way. Be responsible for my pain. But in the meantime, you have no rights. None. It is the child's job. It becomes the child's job to look after the parent, to kind of appease the way, to how do I have to second guess this? How do I have to fix it? Right? To be their confidant. This narcissistic parent, because they can't get their needs met in any other way and the child is incredibly vulnerable, the child becomes the parentified other partner of the parent. Only you understand me. Only you care about me. And oh my God, but there's no reciprocation. There's no way that this parent cares for the child in the same right. The next message is be the best at everything that you do. And by the way, the narcissistic parent chooses what you're allowed to excel at. Seriously. This is where we're talking about the over-involved parent, the parent that insists their child is the best tennis champion, that insists their child is the Olympian, that they never got around to doing, by the way. But, you will be the best at everything, but you're not special. I'm special for making you be the best at what you can. That's the next message. The next message is share everything with me. But by the way, be prepared to accept my ridicule of it. So the parent bullies their way into the child's psyche and gets the child to share why they feel sad, why they feel awkward, why they feel anything, and then gets on the phone in front of the child's earshot and laughs about it, ridicules it. Did you hear what my kid did today? Oh my God, it's so stupid. Telling it to all of the family, ridiculing, shaming the child, constantly tells stories. And any of you that have grown up with a parent or a family member that constantly reminds you of a sad story that hurt you or shamed you or whatever, you remember when they did that? You're in that space with them, okay? The next thing they do is say that anything that you succeed at is my success. Because after all, I chose what you were going to do to be successful to meet my needs. And all accolades about your success belong to me. The underlying message of all of that is, well, you're doing what you're doing, but what's in it for me? The next message is, you're bad. There's no point in even trying to improve yourself. You can't. They regularly compare you as a child to, why can't you be like Auntie Mary's Bobby? Or why can't you be like the neighbour's child, you know? Why can't you be more like them? You're such a failure. And these things that I'm saying, they will touch a lot of you that are listening tonight, okay? And they regularly ridicule the child's appearance. Geez, you're growing boobs, are you? Oh my God, you're getting fat. Jesus, you're so pale. You know, knowing how sensitive growing children are to appearance and how they need to blend in with their peer group. It's designed to lower the child's self-esteem and have them fear their peers and fear the world, binding them to the dysfunctional, narcissistic, toxic parent. Another message is, do what I say, do everything that I say, but by the way, if you fail, it's your fault. It sets the child up for an almost impossible achievement for reflected glory. It's got nothing to do with the child. And if it wins, if the child wins, well, look at me, I chose that. I'm the precious parent. And if it fails, oh, you bloody useless piece of shit, you were never going to get it right. It makes it impossible for the child to leave home. You're hopeless, you're useless, you can't get a job, you're just terrible. But then it complains about, oh my God, you're eating my food, you're living in my space, you're using my electricity. But complaining, but the message is always, don't leave me, don't leave me. I'm going to make it impossible for you to leave me because I'm going to convince you that the world hates you and nobody wants you, only I understand you. And by the way, everything here is mine. The food, the room, the electricity, you can possess nothing. My home, my food. Then they start offering, as the child grows, unneeded or inappropriate help to the offspring growing. And if, who are already conditioned by that, they reluctantly say, no, thank you, or they reluctantly say yes. If they say yes, they're forever reminded about what they owe the parent. Oh, look what I did for you. Did you remember when I paid that thing for you? Do you remember when I bailed you out here? And if they say no, oh, you're such an ungrateful brat in the face of everything that I do for you. So you end up being damned if you do and damned if you don't. You can't win. It's part of the game of conditioning. No private life is allowed. You can trust me, but by the way, I'm still going to go through all of your stuff. I'm going to read your diaries. And they flood this growing human being with intrusive questioning. Why did you do it that way? Why did you argue that way? What's wrong with you? They ridicule your friends. They have no boundaries and no respect because it's all about them. These peeps do not support their children. There is constant nagging about what they're doing wrong, or physical violence or sexual violence. There is no role modeling about how to be healthy in your emotional state, or how to problem solve and navigate the world. The kids can't escape them. They're stalking them around the house, reminding them of their failings and their faults. And often in this family, one child is perceived as the good child, the favoured child, the golden child in script analysis. And by the way, I could describe the psychoanalysis or the psychodynamic of what's going on in here, but this is a very practical thing that I'm talking to you about. because it's soul destroying and damaging. Maybe this week I'll talk about the divided self and the work of Artie Lang, who is a genius. But for now, this is a practical video tonight, okay? They ridicule your friends, you know, and this one child, the golden-haired child, is treated entirely different from the one that is selected to be the black sheep or the scapegoat. The golden child is spoken to differently, treated differently, rewarded differently, but the scapegoat is ignored, punished, and what have you, you know? And in the Stockholm factor, all the family learn to do this, to keep that scapegoat the scapegoat, so they never have to look at themselves. And if I'm more like the thug, then the thug won't pick on me, okay? The scapegoat is created, whose fault it is for everything that's going on in the narcissist's life, as long as it's not pointing at him. And this leads to confusion, overwhelm, hopelessness, anxiety, depression, and they can often live a life of self-sabotage because they're not allowed to exceed, or become neurotic overachievers where they're still not allowed pleasure in anything anyway. These kids raised by toxic parents are set up and pre-programmed to become entangled with a narcissist or to become one. It's that simple. It depends on what level of the story you bought yourself. And then you encounter one of them. How do you recognize them? It's important that you know how to recognize them. They're always charming when you meet them. The first time you encounter one, at least. Once you've encountered one and escaped and healed, oh my God, you've got a radar that's going 1,000 miles that spots them in a heartbeat. Even when no one else can see what's going on, you see them. They stand out like the proverbial dog's balls. And you're leery after that, okay? But initially, depending on your particular programming, you are, you know, you see them as the false self that they're presenting, the savior, the guiding light that they have created for this very purpose. They are warm, pretending to have a great interest in you. They're kind, they're charming. In retrospect, they're often described as capable of charming the birds out of the trees, you know what I mean? They flood you with gifts, with flowers, they win you over. All this before the psychological warfare begins. And make no mistake, it is a take no prisoners psychological warfare that unfolds. The brainwashing begins next. The one that you have been pre-programmed and prepared for. All designed to have no self-esteem and allow them to make all decisions and control all aspects of your life. That's what they need to do, these terrified little children, who the only way that they can exert control, because they have no control on the inside, is to exert control on the outside. They're the most dysfunctional children of all. And the first thing they set out to do in this brainwashing is to isolate you from your friends and family. They find fault with your tribe, finding reasons not to like your friends, sulking when you spend time with them, until the price you pay for being with your friends is not worth the cost you end up spending for having to endure the bastardry after. You need me, I care about you, they don't care about you, they're just exploiting you. Classic projection. The other thing they do, the next thing they do, is they constantly speak in an over-idealized way about themselves. I'm so important. I'm so knowledgeable. I know people you know, they're very important, and they tell me how important I love me. They tell me how special I am. And now my machine is telling me that we're disconnected, but I've had this message before. Can someone just let me know that we're still on? Can you hear me? Are we still going? If someone can just flip that, that would be handy, and I'll just deal with the screen in front of me. They also then go on to tell you that you're making poor decisions. Why do you do that? Let me help you understand. Is there something wrong with you that you think like that? You know what I mean? Ah, good, Ellie. Thanks for letting me know. Thanks, Becky Joe. Good. So despite my screen that says we're fucked, we're not. Thank you. There's probably a narcissist of the internet gods going on at the moment who doesn't want me to say this. So they constantly start to then question yourself. Why are you making these decisions? Why do you think like that? Is there something wrong with you? I know what's best for you. And then they become the final authority on all things. Your views are secondary to theirs because they know best. These are the people who've got to be right no matter what the cost to you. And they also talk to you in terms of respect and promise. If you do what I want, your friends will think better of you. If you listen to me, your colleagues will see that you're a better person. If you listen to me, your family will relate to you better. Do it my way, and I guarantee you'll be much better. I promise you that. Another part of the brainwashing is constantly focusing on your mistakes with shame, right? How many times do I have to tell you this? Why do I have to keep reminding you? Why do you keep doing this? I'm worried about you. Is there something wrong with you? You're too slow. Why can't you see it my special and better way? And the other subtext of all this is that they're constantly nitpicking you all the time, 24 hours a day, about the kids, about money, about how you spend your time, about the food you serve, about your creepy friends that shouldn't be there. And when you're submersed in this for 24 hours a day, it starts to sap at your well-being. And remember, you've already been pre-programmed for this, or otherwise you wouldn't be there. Until you start to doubt yourself. You start to question yourself, which along with the gaslighting that they do, when they say some terrible things to you and you go, what did you mean when you said that? And they said, what? I never said that. Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? Is there something wrong with you? So this is how the brainwashing goes on, okay? This is how, once they've wooed you, locked you down, they then isolate you and start reminding you of your pre-programmed belief that you are not enough and will never get it right. And then they maintain it with other behaviours, okay? And they do this by not being connected to you. You are longing to be connected to them. This is the person who's charmed you out of the trees, who's told you how beautiful you are. And then they want, you want to be one with them, but irrespective of all those other things that they're doing, suddenly they're not there. They're not connected to you. They have no interest in you or your life. They don't care about what you think or what you feel. It's irrelevant. If it doesn't agree with theirs, if it's not adoring to them, they're not remotely interested, okay? These are clues on how to recognize these things in your life, and things is the operative word. There's little human in here, okay? The other thing is they're very thin-skinned, and they react very badly to what they perceive as a criticism. Now, you might be drowning in some pain and you say, have you thought about if we tried it this way? And they go, what? What? Why are you doing this? There's an explosive rage. There's oh my God, how could you do this to me? In an effort to put you back in your box. They're not interested in your emotions, or they overinterpret them. Let's say you went out to lunch with Mary and you had a lovely time with Mary, and you come home and say, oh, geez, I had a really nice lunch with Mary. They're immediately in there, oh, you didn't have a nice lunch with me. What's wrong that you didn't pick me? Why didn't you call me? Kind of crap. And whenever you do talk about things that are actually of interest to you, they're bored. They don't care. They're not interested because it's not about them. It's that simple. And then they continue to feed this process with a chronic underlying judgment about everything that you do. You know, how you handle the kids, how you handle the food. It's just really, chronic underlying projective judgment. You'll also notice about these people is that they're not comfortable with your friends or groups of people who like you. You might go to an engagement party for your sister and they come along, but they're sitting in the corner sulking. They're going, oh my God, can we leave now? You know, they don't want to be around anything that supports you. And they blame all the time. They blame. It's always somebody else's fault. If I'm late, my boss kept me late, the children were doing something, you know, it's always someone else's fault, whether it's lateness, incompetence, cruelty, all of it. It's never about them. They are the perpetual victims, always. And any apology that they might offer when they're actually caught red-handed lying through their teeth, it's very shallow. In fact, it actually enrages them. They don't give a fuck, but it enrages them, and they're doing their best. Oh, yeah, all right, blah, blah, blah. And then they withdraw into silence. You know, these are the mechanisms to continually put you off balance and out of center in the pre-program that you were already given by your family. And that program will either have you become the narcissist or marry one or hook up with one. It's that simple. Until in the end, you begin to realize you're in trouble inside, right? By then, by the way, my loves, a lot of damage has been done to you. Low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, hopelessness, and helplessness have you in their grip. But we begin to become aware that something's wrong. Something's wrong. It doesn't feel right. We can feel it. And it usually takes years to work this out because we're lost in love and the pre-program. Especially when they're the covert time of narcissist. I mean, some of them are outright outrageous, violent, sexually abusive, physically violent. But the covert ones, it's harder to discover what's going on. But we know we're not safe. We start to feel it in our bones, right? And trust me, lovies, when you first acknowledge this, it's very disturbing to come to this place. You recognize that you've bought into a lie. You know, seriously, we want to believe in our lives, in our partner, if it's our partner, our teacher, if it's a teacher, our mentor, if it's a mentor, our minister, if you're into that shit. And these people, by the way, seek such positions of power where they can constantly be adulated and, oh my God, you know, they run yeah, exactly. So it's very hard to come up against them and acknowledge it because these people have been given very special powers in your life by their natural authority of their position, even if they have no authority in reality. You know, Trail, my wonderful mentor and friend and peer. When he was doing his PhD, someone who mattered said to him that, you know, a lot of people in the helping profession are actually high-functioning Asperger's or narcissists who are actually in there, either trying to figure out what's wrong with them or how to make it work for them better. I actually think it's about how to make it work for them better. They've gone into these professions, into these crafts to get more acolytes and more power. So how do we escape this, okay? And escape is the word, my treasures. There's no cure for this, none that in my 40 years of working in the field of human psyche that I have ever witnessed or found. Cure, healing, requires 3 things. First, you must recognize that you are the one with the problem. And that's not going to fucking well happen because for these people, everybody else has got the problem. It's always someone else's fault. Secondly, there has to be a willingness to change. And that's not going to happen either because nothing's wrong with me, but it's all wrong with them out there for not loving me as I love me. And the third thing that is required, and this is really serious, transpersonal soul level work to undo the damage. And that's not going to happen because there's nothing wrong with me. It's everybody else's fault out there. So they do not recover. Most things of the soul level damage can recover in a given lifetime, but this isn't one of them. So escape is your only option. You cannot fix it. You cannot heal it. You cannot be loving enough. You cannot be kind enough. It will never stop. Understand this. Escape is the only option. Now, in order to escape, you have to put a mindset in preparation. You do. You have to actually work it out before you do anything. When you awaken to the shit that you're in, be silent and begin the dialogue within yourself. Don't say a word to the perpetrator. When you work it out, just go, step back and start that inner dialogue. And you say this within yourself to the awakening soul. I will no longer let you be in charge of my inner stability. I will no longer engage in circular arguments about my truth. I will no longer justify my emotions, my needs, or insights with you. I will no longer make excuses to other people when they comment on your weirdness. I will no longer cater to your demands. I'm willing to cooperate with reasonable discussion, but nothing else. And let's face it, you aren't capable of reasonable discussion. And this is important, my darlings. I am no longer going to cling to my childhood bitterness and resentment within myself that binds me to you, because that's what you feed on, you fucker. I'm no longer going to hold and harbour my childhood pain. I will heal to set myself free. I am no longer willing to be seen as the persecutor of your pathetic victim projections. I am no longer willing to isolate myself from friends and tribe that love and support me. I am no longer willing to cloak myself in your shame and your guilt inductions. I am no longer willing to filter myself to keep the peace, to walk on eggshells around you. I am me, and that is enough. I make the decisions for me, and I will be decisive about that. I am no longer willing to constantly apologize for everything that never had anything to do with me. This is the mindset you must take on internally when you recognize the danger you are in. And it is serious danger, my darlings. To the soul, to your body, to your mind and your heart. Now, there are certain strategies. When you've made that awareness, when you've clicked in, and then when you have had that internal dialogue, I'm no longer selling myself to this bullshit anymore. You've got to set up a series of strategies before the escape, okay? First, stop blaming yourself. You are not mad, bad, or stupid. These fuckers are very, very clever. They flourish and thrive on any aspect of self-blame or guilt that you can feel. They will feed it, they will nurture it. You were pre-programmed to dwell in it by your toxic family, and they have conditioned you over years to stay in it. Stop blaming yourself. This really matters. Secondly, and this is also important, stay calm. Don't react when you work it out. Don't go, oh my God, I'm in the hands of a monster. Don't go, oh my God, you're a fucking cunt. Pardon my French tonight, but you know, this one's a big one. Don't react. Just observe. This really, really matters. They are well armed and have a lot more at stake than you to lose if this breaks down. You are about to shatter their self-inflated false self, and oh my God, the narcissistic rage underneath that is unbelievable. So when you see it, and when you've made that commitment to yourself, stay calm, stop blaming yourself, stay still, okay? It really matters. Start looking behind the scenes of this game. Ask yourself, not them, ask yourself, why do they need to control all aspects of my life? Step back. Understand they're terrified children. Only terrified children need to be in that much control of anything. They are living in a fear, in a fear-based smoke and mirrors existence that you've been caught on. And this is hard, by the way, to step back and see it, because you're going, oh my God, I did this, I got caught in this, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you, you're just healing. It's a hard but a necessary step to take. And at this point, my loves, you need to know there are actual, real and present dangers at this point to yourself, to all that you hold dear, emotionally, psychologically, and God spare us, physically. They are quite capable of murder and mayhem at this stage, to you or your children, your parents, anything you hold dear. We witness it every day in that program of terror and hopelessness our daily news broadcasts at us. Some nutbag has gone off and slaughtered their children before shooting themselves or not shooting themselves, whatever. This is narcissistic rage. This is the actual physical danger. When you work this out, be very quietly going about your business of escape. And when you go, make sure you have good friends and protection against the narcissistic rage that will explode out of them. Be safe before you leave. Have it all set up. My recommendation is to leave and disappear. But if you're staying because it's your house, the day you make this decision, change the locks, alert the police, alert your friends, be safe, okay? Now, the consequences of all this freedom, God bless you, break free. Understand this, it's always within the tribe of origin, the family that set you up to be the scapegoat. It's always you who've said, oh my fucking God, I'm so over this. It's always the scapegoat that eventually leaves the tribe of vilification and persecution. God knows, who can blame them? They, when they're ready, if ever, and this can go on for generations, I might add, ad nauseum, they are the ones to say, enough, no more. And when you walk away, when you draw the boundary around yourself and say, no more, enough, when they can no longer point the finger at you and say it is all your fault, ergo I don't have to look at myself and my own participation or failings, then, once you've walked away from that tribe, the whole house of cards collapses. That has been built on the lie of blame, shame and guilt. It all comes crashing down. As you walk away into healing and recovery, when you are no longer willing to play the game, when they point the finger at you about how it's all your fault, but you no longer give a shit, thank you very much. When they have nowhere to project but into the misery of their own projections, in that moment, you've actually given that whole tribe from which they emerged the most precious gift they will ever have, an opportunity to see the game for what it is. They won't thank you for it, by the way, but it is their one opportunity to break free. Because when you're no longer willing to be the subject of everybody's pain, The person who's projecting it, when you've drawn the boundaries and say, nah, fuck you, I'm not playing that anymore, then they start, that's got to keep being expressed because that's what they are. So then they turn it on their mother or their brother or their son or somebody else in the family. And finally the family says, oh, it wasn't about you. Oh, they're the crazy one. Figure it out. The perpetrator won't see it for all the things we've talked about. They will go on and find a softer target if they can. But for the rest, for the family of origin, they begin to see what's going on. And also, as you prepare to make your escape and the consequences of it, be mindful of feelings of disloyalty within yourself when you begin to examine this. You've been preconditioned by childhood and reinforced in this mad relationship to feel guilt for even thinking disloyal thoughts, right? Guilt is crippling and we'll sell our souls to the devil to avoid it. You need to witness these feelings and endure them, see them for what they are, bindings to a mad reality. When you find this exit strategy, do it without confrontation. Your self-esteem at this point is pretty low right now, okay? Codependency abounds. I can't live if living is without you, kind of thing, you know? Have good people around you who love you. Even if for peace during the relationship you've excluded them, reach out, reconnect, on the quiet, this matters. Let those who truly love you hold you up while you remember or relearn how to do it for yourself, okay? I can't stress this enough. If they cotton on to what you're trying to do, if they cotton on to your awakening, they will immediately seek to destroy all of your connections, to reinforce how wretched you are, and to protect themselves from exposure. They remember that the same person who is monstering you at this moment is still charming the birds out of the trees, of the tiny minds of others, recruiting allies in the perception of your wretched madness, and ergo they're suffering at your hands. They will convince everyone to drink the Kool-Aid of your wrongness and therefore their rightness. Continuance to this, their terror of exposure and their need to be seen as the victim of your madness is very, very, very real and manipulatively powerful. Everyone out there is asleep and believes what they're told because they're genuinely truthful and they think everything that's being spoken to them are not necessarily lies. When they understand that you're trying to escape, they will push you to react. They will push you to attack them, okay? Because if they can get you to lose your shit over this and you're already vulnerable and afraid and losing self-esteem, then the minute you lose your mind, they'll broadcast it to everybody to make others perceive that you're the insane one, despite all of their best efforts to love you. You know, I'm doing so much. I'm trying so hard. Look at what I have to put up with. But again, remember, the consequences are you're giving everyone a chance to break free. Not only yourself, you've already done that. But you've given everyone else the opportunity they may never have again. And by the way, they won't thank you for this. They'll do their best to put you back in the box. They will lose their tiny minds. They'll do what you can to bring you back, to be the problem child again in that Stockholm way that we've talked about over the last few weeks. However, if you dare to stay free, to draw clear boundaries, then they too, all that have perpetuated in that Stockholm way of keeping you small and wrong, finally, and there's no greater gift you can give them, they can see their own part in it. The house of cards tumbles. Whether they do that or not, by the way, is not your concern. It's not why you're here. Your freedom shows them a possibility that it can be done. That's all. What they do with it is up to them and them alone. You are no longer responsible for anything but yourself, your freedom, and your self-love growing. You in that moment have become a healer, pushing boulders out of the way so that the people walking behind you have a smoother path, planting this in the race mind. Light workers do this, by the way. And to all of you who have walked this path, who have escaped, or who are in the throes of pain seeking ways out, I bloody well salute you. It is the most painful wound of all. It is the most painful assault on the self-love of the psyche, spending time with these arseholes who are also wretched, terrified children. You know, remember what I was saying the other night when dear Trail's energy said, can you imagine what would have you behave in that way? No, none of us can. Which gives you some idea of the terror that drives it. No excuses, just understanding. So if you find yourself with one of these necromancers, pay attention, set up your strategy. Do it quietly. Do not react to these people. Play the game better than they play it themselves. Surround yourself with loved ones. And when you're ready, go and go completely. And be prepared to endure the storm that will come. And protect yourself and have others protect you through it. It's a big one. We are all contaminated by it, either in our childhoods, our friendships, our colleagues, our romantic partners. We are all contaminated by it, either witnessing it, experiencing it, whatever. Be strong. There is nothing you are creating and co-creating right now that you do not have all the resources in your existence to deal with. I promise you that, despite the lunatic monkey in your head telling you otherwise. And when you've worked out you're living with one of these woe-begone creatures, plan to leave, and when you leave, leave quickly, efficiently, quietly, and well. That will help you endure the storm while they find someone else to target. Another one of Trail's great energies once explained to me many, many years ago that a snake is very easy to handle as long as you always remember you're handling a snake. And when the snake turns its attention to you and you work out what's going on, what you must do is grip that snake at the back of its head. So it can't turn so easily. And then you hold it at arm's length and you don't look at it, you don't speak to it, you have nothing to do with it until it gets bored and looks for somewhere else to go and target, and then you release it and it slithers out of your life to teach something else to someone else who needs to grow and evolve. So be mindful of the snakes in your life, lovey, and stop blaming yourself and stop being responsible for the things you are not. Garner your strength, wake up, grow up, surround yourself with loved ones, but do it very, very quietly. And when you're ready to break free forever. Enough said tonight. Thank you for listening to me. As always, I might look at, as I said, I didn't go into the psychopathology or the psychodynamic of what's going on there, but the divided self is something worth looking at, but maybe later this week if I get a chance. Thank you all for listening to me all again. Pay attention. If you've got one of these assholes in your life, fuck them off. It's that simple. But do it in the way I have described, and that will keep you and your loved ones safe. Good night, beloveds. See you tomorrow.